And welcome to the Blue versus Green show over here. My name is Gabe. I'm joined by our regular co-hosts, Walt and Jose. Say what's up, guys.
What's up, people?
And this is week 5, right? This is week 5.
It is.
Right. So we just finished week 5, Sunday for the New York teams. We obviously still have Monday Night Football going, and we still got a game going on right now as we record. But before we get into the show, just want to remind you guys to like, rate, share, and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button down there. If it's the first time that you're here, thank you so much for joining us. And if you're a returning customer, make sure you hit that notify button so that you guys get the latest episode right to you. So without further ado, let's get right into it. We're going to go ahead and start with the Jets. The Jets win in one of the craziest games, and maybe not in the best way, but one of the craziest games out there. They win 31-21 against the Denver Broncos. A little bit of kind of like off the field drama between some of the coaches, some trash talk, a little bit, you could say, but. Going right into the hot takes, me personally, the interesting thing about this game is that to me, it felt apparent that this was a game between two teams of who can give the game away the least. And I think the Jets came out on top of that one, obviously, as they won. But, man, the turnovers, the plays, some of the decisions, some of the outcomes, I couldn't believe. Every single time that there was like a ridiculous happening in this game, I was like, well, that's how they're going to lose the game. And then, of course, the other side tries to give the game away again. So that's how I felt about the game. What about you guys?
So, Jose, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that game was after the game. I said that I'm happy we won, but I wasn't super happy with the win. It wasn't saucy enough to put it. Let's put it that way. Yeah. I thought they were a little conservative, and like you said, there were a lot of situations where Jets fans were pulling their hair out or whatever the hell the situation was, just really frustrated with some decisions and then some almost turnovers and some turnovers, and then they just kept giving us the opportunities that we needed to put that game away. But I was hoping it would be a more decisive kind of game for me, at least.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm a little frustrated because we saw what Zach could have been last week, and it felt like they went away from that again. They didn't trust Zach enough, and they put him back into game manager mode until the very end of the game. And I can't understand what's going on with this defense. This defense is driving me nuts here because you know what? We know that they've had issues since last season with the running game. They can't, for the life of me, stop. I don't understand that they can't stop the run. And these slow starts, eventually, it's going to catch up to them. They've been fortunate enough to be able to come back in some of these games. They haven't won some of these games. And if they continue to do that, they're putting themselves in really, really bad positions. So I'm kind of like Jose on this. This was a game that I'm glad that they won, but clearly there's a lot of things that the Jets have to work on to going forward.
Well, it's funny that we that you guys look at it that way, that you're kind of, I guess confused. I got to say, the broadcast team on this game was amazing. Tiki Barber in particular. And one of the things that they mentioned, come on, Jose, come on, Walt, you got to give him a little bit of credit. I think he was really, really great in this game, especially considering. So I was specifically paying attention to Tiki because I knew that you were also listening to him. So
we could have had a better game without Tiki. He cursed us.
Don't put it on Tiki. You cannot put this on Tiki. But
it's all about Tiki.
But one of the things, and I'm not sure if it was Tiki or Matt Ryan who made this point, but they, like, one of the commentators specifically said that they are just confused by this Jets team. They, sometimes they have like brilliant defensive and offensive play, and then followed up by really boneheaded defensive and offensive play, and they just don't know exactly what Jets team is going to go out, not just in the game, not just this week, But whenever they take the field, you just don't know which one of those are going to show up. But this game was the battle of the Wilsons. You have Russell Wilson on one side, Zach Wilson on the other. Who do you guys think? Who would you say won? I mean, obviously, we know who won. The Jets took away this game and everything. But overall, both of these quarterbacks had a lot to prove. Both of these quarterbacks, had to, Zach Wilson needs to show that he can be more than just a backup. And Russell Wilson needs to show that last year was just kind of an off year, and that there's a reason why he should still be in the league. How do you guys feel about like the matchup specifically, with Russell Wilson?
Well, with Russell Wilson, I was listening to the post game comments with Sean Payton because I was kind of wondering if he was going to apologize. He did not. He kind of lumped Nathaniel Hackett and the coaching staff together and said, yeah, they played a pretty good game. The thing about it, though, that struck me was that he specifically put himself on blast because he said, you know what? I didn't game plan that very well. We got away from some things that were working out well for us in that first half.
This is Sean Payton?
This is Sean Payton talking about Russell Wilson and talking about the team in general. Russell Wilson had an incredible first half, to be quite honest. He was gashing the Jets with his, scrambles, and he was dinking and dunking them to death. And that's a problem, again, that with the Jets, the slow start, totally different situation in the second half. The second half, he was non-existent until maybe the drive that got them within 3. But other than that, I was looking around trying to see where Russell Wilson was, to be quite honest, because he wasn't playing in Mile House Stadium. He was completely gone. So this might be a hot take, but I do think that Zach Wilson, in the moments that counted, did outplay Russell Wilson because he didn't make.
Really interesting that you say that,
because and this is why I say this. He didn't make any costly mistakes. Now, the mistake that he had with that interception, right? That really was on Garrett Wilson's hands, and it bounced up to the cornerback. Garrett Wilson, we've gotten to the point where we expect Garrett Wilson to make those catches. That ball did hit him in the hands, and it bounced off and went to Patrick Surtain. So I can't put that intersection on Zach completely. And Zach Wilson made some big throws toward the end of the game. Russell Wilson, he was, like I said, he was non-existent for that second half, except for that one drive at the end. And then when he needed to, he was very careless with the ball, which caused the Quincy Williams strip sack and the last touchdown to end the game. So,
yeah, Quincy Williams had a hell of a game. We should talk a little bit about him, but Jose, what do you think about that? Because me personally, I think that it was more of a tie. Russell Wilson won the first half. Zach Wilson won the second half in terms of performance, feeling kind of synergy with their team, and so on and so forth. It's, again, I say that it's funny that you say that because the first half ended with Zach Wilson not showing any sense of urgency and kind of leaving points on the board. They could have left with 3 points or even a possible, one more touchdown pass if they wanted it, potentially.
And that's why I said in the moments that mattered, because Zach Wilson did not have a great first half, but in the second half he did show up. So that's why I say that.
Yeah. So Jose, did you see anything specifically, that would sway you one way or the other, or are you in agreement with Walt on this one?
I don't know that either one of them outplayed the other. Russell Wilson, I don't know that I don't want to say that he had a great first half. He was rushing all over the place in the first half, but that's more on the Jets defense just being god awful in the first half, being god awful against scrambling mobile quarterbacks.
That's a big issue.
Giving that away in a sense, because he had, I think, up until some point midway through the third quarter, he had about 68 passing yards. So Russell Wilson wasn't outgunning anybody for most of the game. We were giving him a bunch of bullshit, and that's why they were staying in the game. Now, Zach Wilson wasn't exactly lighting anything on fire, but he was incredibly efficient for the entire game. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he ended the game 19 for 26 with a 73.1% passing percentage, 199 yards, 7.7 yards per attempt. So he did well. He didn't have urgency at the end of the first half.
Ugh.
Nobody else did either, except for, I don't know who it was up at the top of the screen, but one of the wide receivers was livid when the Jets didn't get back to the line.
That probably was Garrett. I think that was Garrett.
It was probably Garrett Wilson. He was livid. He had his hands up in the air. He was flipping out. Nobody was really showing any urgency there. So you put that on Zach and you put that on the rest of the team also. And yeah, that interception, although it wasn't a perfect throw, you expect your star receiver to either get it or get it out of the way, get it away from the defender. And it did kind of hop up onto Surtain's hands. So if anything, it was a draw, and Zach Wilson won the game. So maybe you could say he got the slight edge.
Okay, well,
I agree.
You know, I think that the slight edge belongs in the coaching department. Again, I think, you know, when it came to coaching and play calling, they had some really amazing play calls on both ends, really. But you had a lot of misses and a lot of kind of like head scratchers. I'm specifically talking about, you know, the Hackett and Peyton kind of little bit of a drama. I know that you touched on it before. I do believe that Peyton did like kind of try to walk back those comments, but it was a little bit too late considering the heat and even the comment that Aaron Rodgers gave back. But how did you guys feel about that little matchup, as well as Robert Saleh's coaching? Anyone want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll jump on it. I thought Sean Payton's out coached the Jets in the first half. I think that they didn't get a lot out of any individual player in the first half. It seemed the running game was doing well. Their running back was doing a solid job. But again, I feel like really that's more on the Jets defense. We've seen that over and over again with other teams just running the ball well, quarterbacks scrambling well against us. I don't think that's any particular strength, but I think the play calling was better because, again, and I think, you know, Walt was talking about this earlier. He's probably going to want to talk about this a little bit more, and I'll let you touch on this, but we got back to that run pass nonsense that we were doing week in and week out.
Especially during the red zone.
You know,
so that drives me nuts.
Actually, you know, let me quickly butt in real quick, Jose. Don't you think that I think that what's happening here is that this was really, now that I think about it just came to me, and I don't know if you agree or either of you agree to this, but I think that the reason it came down more to the coaching is because both of these quarterbacks are both game managers more than quarterbacks, it seems like, and that's how they're being played. Maybe Russell Wilson should be managed a little bit more. Maybe Zach Wilson should be allowed to be a little bit more free. But doesn't this now, in retrospect, kind of feel like it was just like two coaches using quarterbacks as game managers?
I think that it was two coaches using quarterbacks as game managers who actually are not game managers or not game managers in those situations in the pocket. You have two quarterbacks that like to get outside the pocket, and you had one quarterback that was getting outside the pocket in the first half and one that was not. I think we all know which one was not, and the play calling was unimaginative, in my opinion. I think honestly, Hackett tried to play this as any other game kind of game instead of giving it whatever hype the media, whoever else wanted to give it. I don't think he wanted to give it any energy. And I don't think he wanted to try to get creative or try to like out-duel Sean Payton. He just wanted to win the game. That's why he went back to some simple fundamentals, because I guess he figured, and somewhat rightly so, and then I'll pass it off to one of y'all to continue the point, but he figured that the running game would be able to do a good job, which is why you do run pass against the Broncos, and the Broncos have been getting crushed for weeks in the running game, worse than we have. Breece had a great game, but I don't know. It didn't seem like there was a lot of gas behind the play calling.
Well, yeah, you know, I think that you're right about that. You know, and there was definitely some funky decisions that were happening, you know, from the coaching sideline and some other issues too. You know, we can get to some of the officiating issues a little bit later. I know Walt definitely wants to jump in on that. But what did you feel about like the some of the funky decisions, especially towards the end of both halves, on the Jets side and the matchup between Hackett and Peyton? And just real quick, one thing that I think, even though Hackett might not have wanted this to be anything more than just another game, the players most certainly didn't feel that way. The Jets players specifically, at least emotionally, wanted to win this game specifically for Hackett. They came in there with some fire. But how did you feel about all that? Well,
so just speaking on that, I wonder if that had an impact on how this team started, because clearly, if you listen to Hackett during the week, he made an effort to kind of divert the energy around the Hackett Payton thing. Like
right.
Whenever he was asked about that, it was very quick, concise answers. It was like yes, no, that's it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if I'm grading this on both sides, I think I'm giving a very generous D- to the coaching staffs on both teams, because quite honestly, this nonsense with the Jets starting slow really has to stop. And that to me is more of a
Both
coaching
sides.
thing, because especially on the offense, you're scripting things. And on the defense, that there's a script coming and you've got to be able to change on the fly. And they're not doing that at all. Right. So they're letting teams go down. And the defense, I'm really concerned about the fact that in the last 2 weeks, you played both Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson, who are two very good mobile quarterbacks, and you haven't employed a spy on defense at all. And you look at the way the Jets basically lost the game last week against the Chiefs. And what was it? It was a 23-yard scramble by Mahomes. You look at the first half where Wilson was doing the exact same thing. And so, I wonder where the accountability is going to come from the defense, because you know what? You're playing mobile quarterbacks. You're playing man. You've got to employ somebody to be a spy for that quarterback. You cannot let him run free in that second level in the middle of the field, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then you go to the most egregious part, which is the end of that first half, which I was ready to throw the remote control at the TV at that point, because that is a clear lack of understanding of where you are, how much time you have, and that's not only coaching, that's players too.
Yeah, that's discipline. That's discipline. I said
they were strolling up to that line.
Yeah, I had said in the group chat, I had said that was inexperience there that killed it for you guys.
That was more than an
all the way around,
man.
Like the sideline, the coaching, I think that maybe like a few of the players definitely showed like that urgency. They knew the moment, but the other half of the team literally was just kind of like, oh, what's up, yeah, let's
like
just walk up to the line. We got.
But where that
Uzoma was the only one that was aware in that moment. He was sprinting when he caught that.
Yeah, he was sprinting. He was running. He was like, yo, let's go.
I hate to say it, but the blame really falls on Zach on that one, because you're the leader of that offense. You've got the freaking play call clock right in front of you in the end zone. You got to tell those guys, irregardless, you got to get up to the line. We got to do this quick. They were all just scrolling. They thought they had 2 minutes instead of 2 seconds on that clock.
But real quick though, because the commentary on the broadcast also, they did say that usually, and I'm assuming this is either Matt or Tiki, but they said that in this situation, usually, in the play call, they'll remind you like, hey, you're going to be in this situation. You're going to have to quick, spike it quick. You have this much time. Like they'll usually remind them. Is it like, did Zach get that reminder, to understand what the situation was?
Yeah.
Not that it matters because it doesn't fall, like whether he got it or not. He still needs to know whether he gets that reminder or not. But I am interested to know if he got any kind of information on that, or did the sideline assume that Zach knew what he was going to do? And if that's the case, then that could point towards one of the things that I felt, which is that the coaching staff still doesn't fully trust Zach, which is why we didn't see him get these like huge plays all the time.
I'm gonna put this out there real quick, and then I'll throw it to Jose to answer this. How long has Zach Wilson been playing football?
Technically,
I'm assuming at some point he played Pop Warner. I'm assuming at some point he played high school. I'm assuming at some point he played in college.
I was going to say he's technically in his rookie year all over again, but you're right. You were talking about
this is not Gabe, and I'm not pointing it to you, but I'm pointing it to everybody, right? This is not one of these plays that happens every once in a while. You know, when you're coming to the end of any half, whether it's the first half or the second half, you know clock is an issue. I'm pretty sure that
there's a really big clock.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure at some point in his life, Zach has either been in that situation. If he's a football fan, he's seen that situation. If he's talked to the coaches, they've talked to him about that situation. So for anybody to suggest that Zach didn't know what he was doing, I got to call bullshit on that, because you know what? That is football 101. Like literally.
Well, I definitely want to get Jose's thoughts on this, and then we can get
it's going to be the first page. You know what I'm saying?
I want to get Jose's thoughts on that, but we also need to get how we feel about the Jets in general.
But you can see how do
you feel about that play, right? Is it fully on Zach, or does the coaching have any account, even if it's 18% of it, like we said about
it's less than that. It is on Zach Wilson.
Yeah, it is. I was trying to play devil's advocate over here.
I'll play devil's advocate to the smallest extent, and I'll say, when was the last time that the Jets actually had Zach Wilson try to be aggressive at the end of the first half? Like, never. So he's never been in that actual situation, if you really think about it.
Yeah,
That's the only thing I would say as a devil's advocate. Still,
again, inexperienced.
You gotta get the offense. You see it all the time. You see when I say quarterbacks excited. Yeah. I've seen Justin Fields do it a couple of times. You got to go flying down that field and just
you got to have emotion and all that stuff. And it's funny because usually when we see that, it's off of like a big pass and all that, and you see quarterbacks running, sprinting. I've seen DJ do this. In this one, they were in line. He was like right there. He was like less than a few yards away, just walking up. Not even this, just like literally like moseying on up and stuff.
I was literally expecting the water boy to come and start throwing water in everybody's face, because I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it was.
And you know what's funny though? The play call was interesting. I definitely really want to get to the to the next segment, but the play calling was interesting. Matt Ryan, actually, now that I think about this, made this point, and this is why I thought that like this was a little bit more on the coaches, because Matt Ryan said that usually the indicator is, do you have 15 seconds or less? If you're at the 14-second mark, then that tells you that you don't have enough time to stop the clock, and that is where Matt Ryan, I believe, kind of questioned the play call in that situation in the first place, because he was like, no matter what, you only have you have 10 seconds. There's no way that you're gonna be able to burn the clock down. You're gonna be able to burn the down. So that shouldn't have been the play call in the first place. You maybe have a couple seconds to throw it and see if something happens. If not, throw it out of bounds and stop the clock. But that's why he was questioning the play calling. Now, we have a few other things, that happened specifically in this game. Big time were some of the injuries, AVT once again, and some others. I'll let you guys kind of go into this, but I do want to ask you guys how you guys feel about the Jets. I personally feel more or less the same. I still don't really trust Zach Wilson, even though we may not have seen his full potential. I just still feel like, just as you're highlighting, he's been in the game for some time and he's doing these kind of mistakes that I don't know. I feel like they're, you don't coach you don't coach people out of these mistakes. It's either in them or it's not on some of these situations. Even though he played a much cleaner game, I think now than previously, but how do you guys feel about the Jets moving forward, Zach Wilson coaching, and specifically, how do you guys feel about the Jets after all these injuries?
Well, okay. So the offensive line was finally coming together. So the injuries were pretty disappointing. I guess we'll see what's going to happen with ABT. everyone else was able to come back into the game. I think Tippin came out near the end of the game, but that was more of a precautionary thing. The game was already pretty much over, and they decided to step out on that. I think that's kind of huge. We're going to see against the Eagles, because the Eagles have a good defensive line. They have a great offensive line too, so that's going to be a huge test. But that was really, really, really rough to see a couple of those players go down with injuries. I feel so. The question about Zach Wilson is a question about the team, I think, unfortunately, because as we talked about, is I've been like screaming about literally every single week in a semi-defense of Zach Wilson for the last few weeks. The defense is just not doing it in the first half, one way or another. Maybe it's the first quarter, but there's some segment of the first half that the defense is just not getting it done, giving up big plays, giving up chunk plays. They're not getting it done when it comes to the run. They're not getting it done when it comes to scrambling quarterbacks, blah, blah, blah. We talked about all this earlier. Zach Wilson, to me, I was hoping for more again, but I was hoping for more from the team overall. When you don't get him going with a few solid completions at the beginning of a game, that fucks everything up for him for as much of the game as it takes to start getting him going with a couple of completions, which is what happened at the end of the second half. And there's one thing I have to disagree with you on. I think every problem Zach Wilson has is coachable. I think that's exactly what the problem is. And I'll turn it over to Walt after this, but the reason I say that even more so is because you want to talk about the time management at the end of the second half. One of the things that is a notorious weakness for Robert Saleh has been time management. This is one of the things that's been a weakness for Jets coaches in general, it seems, for a very, very long time, as well as unlucky officiating. But that's another topic. I mean, we just don't know how to manage time at the end of the game. This is Madden shit. Like, you should be able to do this. We all know how to do this, and they just don't do it well.
Yeah, before getting Walt's thoughts just on that whole, like, again, the reason I say uncoachable, it's not, I guess it's not that it's not coachable, but it's just, as Walt said, these are things that, you know, he should already know. And I think what's getting in the way, I'm sure that he knew what he had to do, but what's getting in the way is certain habits that he has. And sometimes habits are really hard to break, and sometimes they don't break at all. So, but Walt, how are you feeling, you know, after today? I mean, we started off saying how, like, you guys are happy that they won, but not happy at how. But what are your thoughts on the state of the Jets, the injuries specifically? And I do want you to at least touch on Breece Hall, because Breece Hall, we didn't get a chance to talk about Breece Hall, but Breece Hall really did. We only touched on him a little bit, but he really did. I mean, like, I'm telling you right now, I wish we can have some sort of a running game like you guys had today.
So, where do I start? Let's start with Breece Hall, because Breece Hall is clearly a positive. 177 yards rushing today on, I believe, 20 carries, was it? 22 carries. 177 yards.
72-yard touchdown run, I think, right?
72 yards. Interesting you mentioned that, because Breece Hall, in his limited time, has two of the top 3 longest runs in the NFL this season. And this is the first time that he's been sort of taken off the pitch count. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yes. This is Breece Hall unlocked.
Yes. This is him activated, ready to go. He is him, Breece the Beast, Breece Lightning, whatever the hell you want to call it. The
Breece
man
Lightning,
is, he is amazing. He is probably, and the funny thing about it, and they reference this a couple of times in the post game with some of the players. You look at Breece Hall, with how he runs, he doesn't look like he's running fast, but yet somehow he finds a way to kind of outrun. It's his running style that is so deceptive, right?
It's you know what it is? It's like he's Neo, and as he starts to run, he sees what's going to happen, and he gets out of the way before it does. I see him, like, again, he's not fast, but he scoots out of the way. He hops left, hops right, not even really juking, and he's just not there, finds a hole and runs right through, when that hole is there. Of course, I mean, if he really was Neo, he'd be able to get to the end zone every single time.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. He's not fast. He doesn't look fast, at least. He doesn't look
very
fast.
fast.
Definitely, he's making every defender kind of look left when they should be looking right.
And the thing about it also is, and he mentioned it also in the post game, he's very deliberate in how he runs, because he said prior to that 72-yard run that he was setting up for that. So like the first couple of plays that he had, which were basically the same type of thing, he would cut right, tried to kind of, get the defender thinking that he's moving this way. And on that 72-yard run, he was like, okay, I'm just going to try and outrun this guy. And so you can tell that there's a method to his madness when he's running. And he's, with every run that he has, he's stacking and kind of putting the chess pieces in place for future. He's like a Jedi. He sees everything one thing ahead of time, right? Before anybody else, pod running, right? What is that thing?
Pod racing.
Right? There you go.
Racer.
This is Breece Hall and his version of pod racing, right? So just to put a Star Wars reference in there. When it comes to the Jets overall, again, I kind of think that all of this stuff is really coaching related. The late starts, the lack of
discipline.
Because I mean, they were penalized a lot. Now listen, again, we're going to go back to this. The refs, I really truly believe that the refs just hate the Jets. That's my personal feeling. I think that the fact that Tiki Barber was calling the game kind of impacted that as well.
Oh my goodness.
I had to throw that out there. Right?
Stop it.
So, no, but in all seriousness, I mean, you
did an amazing job.
No, he did. To his credit, he did. And then that I'm not a Tiki Barber fan, right?
Yeah.
But he did call a good game today. But, I want my coach, Robert Saleh, to really get up on the podium and start taking these refs to task, because there was a clear hit to the head on one of the sacks by Zach Wilson that wasn't called. And for a fact that if that was the other team and the Jets were sacking them, not only would they get roughing the passer, they'd probably get, false start. They'll probably throw in, some DPI. They'll give them a speeding ticket for going too fast, a parking ticket at the same time. You know what I'm saying?
Was it in this game that was it in this game or the Giants game? I'm thinking I'm having a flashback. I'm thinking of like somebody running cutting across as a receiver, and he literally just get tackled by the head, and it wasn't called.
That was the Giants game.
That was the Giants game. Okay,
I think that was Slayton. Yeah, he was.
That's right. That's right.
He grabbed them and kind of flipped them around. That was the Giants.
Well, it was the one that was like kind of a headlock, but I guess I think it was the Giants game. Yeah, but it definitely was kind of another example of the officiating being terrible. Now, the point that I had said off air that I wanted to make a point specifically on this, the broadcast team, this is usually an indicator when even the broadcast team knows that it's bad. They don't want to say anything negative about the NFL. This is how they lose a job. And they definitely don't want to say anything about the officials because, again, that's how they lose a job. But usually the indicator is when the broadcast team or a commentator will say, "Oh, wow, look at that. I'm very surprised they didn't call that." And that's usually their way of signaling like, "Hey, refs, do your job." That was a bad missed call. And this is already after them, the broadcast team noticing, oh, they missed a call there, they missed a call here. And then, they go into it. That was a really obvious call and they still missed it and they don't understand. And, I don't know how they could fix that. But anyway, yeah, that's
refereeing on a whole this season has been really, really bad. Not only with the Jets. Yeah, it's
I think league-wide.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, I think the Jets are on the right path. There is some positives to take out of it, but clearly there is a lot of things that needs to be cleaned up in that locker room and on the field itself. before we can start talking about the Jets in a playoff light. You know what I'm saying? And today was a good step against a bad team. But and the good thing is that the schedule gets a little bit easier for them, but they do need to clean up a lot of stuff. And
do you mean it gets easier for them because you're facing us in a couple weeks, or
no, not that in general.
I know.
But
yes, it does seem like the Jets' trajectory is kind of, even though kind of like on a bit of a jagged, a lot of turbulence. Like it seems like Jets are beginning to take off, whereas it seems like the Giants are nosediving, and it just does not look good. I'll be honest, I don't remember. Now I came into the Giants fandom at the start of the Eli Manning era. And we've had some really bad seasons, as far as like how things look. I don't think that there has ever been a season, in the Eli Manning era that has ever looked like the Giants are really well put together. Maybe 2008, 2007. But it has never looked great. But so far, this seems like the least well put together, or the least put together Giants team that we have ever seen. They lose to the Dolphins. I mean, I think everybody had them losing to the Dolphins, but it's just the way that they lost this game. The 31-16. We were in this. Once again, we were kind of in this game, a winnable game, if not for a lot of really bad penalties. Offensive line starting to show a little bit of an improvement, but then in the second half completely deteriorated and went back to the offensive line that just lets everything, literal turnstiles, lets everything through, and unfortunately ended with DJ getting hurt and being taken out of the game. My main takeaway, my main hot take is that DJ looks sadder than ever. I think that we're going to have to start a sad DJ meme, just like the sad Keanu meme, because seeing the post I was going to say the post-fight press conference, but the post-game press conference, DJ just looks so dejected there. It's kind of like, what's he supposed to tell the reporters? Because one thing about DJ is that he really does try to take ownership over all the fault. He never wants to put anyone under the bus. They kept asking him, do you think that it would be better if the O-line did better, or this, that, and the third? And he's like, no, we just all got to do better. I got to do much better. I got to get the ball out quick out of my hands. I don't know. Sometimes it feels like he did have some good protection tonight. And when he did, he was able to move the ball around. We did some good stuff out there, especially with Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard even did some things, although Shepard to me has always been a little bit 50-50, and tonight he was also kind of 50-50, some good and some bad. But it's just DJ looks like a guy that wants a vacation, that he's just looking for a break. He's like, he just can't seem to catch a break. So that's my hot take on the Giants right now. DJ looks sadder than ever, and so does the team. So
sad DJ.
Who wants to chime in on your thoughts, your hot take on the Giants?
Sad DJ, sad Dable, sad Giants fan, sad podcast. What is it with New York teams in the first half? Because it must be like kind of a shell shock situation to be a Giants fan, because you said the protection looked good in the first half. They sacked him 4 times in the first half. It was still not good.
Yeah.
It was okay, but it wasn't like second half like DJ is out of the game because like they're giving him freaking whiplash. I didn't see the hit. Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch the games because I'm out of market. Screw the NFL for that. But, I was listening to the games, and the fact that they're allowing these kind of things to happen to poor sad DJ. And talking about like sad DJ, in the first quarter, I was watching some highlights from the game, just before we got on the podcast. In the first quarter, I think it was one of the first sacks, sack number 1, sack number 2. He just flipped the ball to the referee, kind of like not looking at him. And he already looked like really sad, and like he was already giving. He put his hands on his hips after he flipped the ball to the ref. I was like, oh Jesus, this is not looking very good.
Yeah.
It's really hard to even know where to begin right now because like this is normally how Jets fans feel. I mean, that's the best place to begin. This is a Jets season. The Giants have like consistently, to be honest, been the more serious quote unquote franchise in New York, and this is the kind of shit that happens to the Jets, like this kind of mess that we see right now. You know, like the offensive line is in shambles. You have players flipping out the fans. I mean, I feel like it's really hard to say what exactly is like the biggest issue with the team right now. I mean, the wide receivers are doing okay, but
we don't have a wide receiver one.
I mean, the biggest problem with the wide receivers is you're not getting any yards after the catch. I feel like that's one of the biggest things that I feel like I'm seeing. You'll get the ball if anything, and the drops, and then they're not really going very far with it. Like that's one of the things that is exciting as a Jets fan. Like they got a lot of catch and runs. If you're a 49ers fan, like Jesus, you're a pig in shit. Like
that's the cool part. The catch is cool, but the runs after is even cooler.
I feel like there's like a lot of really positive things that's the thing that upsets me. Like you said earlier, the Giants have been in practically every single game that they've played this season, at least until like say the third quarter, right?
We were never in that Cowboys game.
except for that Cowboys game. Okay. Like, but every other game you scored some points. You know, DJ was doing the best that he really, really could. I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna have to turn it over because I think the most positive thing is that I see glimpses of some greatness in this team, and then it just kind of falls apart sooner than it should. I don't want to rant forever on it. Go on ahead.
Yeah. Right. Well,
so with the Giants, I believe I asked this question either in one of our shows in the preseason or maybe the very first Dallas game, but I'm going to ask it again because I think it's relevant here. The Giants right now are probably, I don't think it's any stretch of the imagination to say this, probably one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in football this year, right? And this has nothing to do with me trying to be a Giants hater.
No. I know it's my side. My side is an agreement. My side is in a. I know this, but I didn't want to hear it, even though I knew it.
Listen, they didn't score a touchdown today. They didn't score a touchdown today. The touchdown that they got was a defensive thing. So you look at this team. This team has been virtually totally inept when it comes to offense this year. They've got there's nothing really truly positive that comes out of here. So this is what I say. And this is why I'm gonna ask this question again. Because last year the Jets got out to a 7-2 start, and everybody was high on their horse. Brian Daboll was the talk of the town. Everybody was on Brian Daboll's tip, so to speak. Sorry.
Deservingly so.
Huh? No. I'm saying that. I'm saying that that's fine. But you look at it, and they ended the season. Well, if they were 7-2, they ended the season 2-5-1, and then you had the playoffs and they beat a Minnesota team, which let's be honest, not the greatest playoff team that's out there.
I don't want to get into this debate because at the end of the day,
I'm giving you credit. I'm giving you credit for the playoff game because a playoff win is a playoff win. But I'm kind of trying to put this into the narrative.
Yeah, I know.
I'm saying? And so when
I just don't want to be beaten down more than I'm already getting beaten down by the Giants.
But my question still stands is, were we kind of bamboozled with Brian Daboll's quick start? And the truth of the matter is that the Giants aren't the team from that first half of the season. They really, truly are the team of the second half of the season, a team that last year struggled against winning teams. I think they were like 2-9 against them. I think we already know the answer. The Giants probably are not that very good. And I think the frustrating thing, and me looking on the outside, looking in, right? Me being a Jet fan, not a Giants fan. I think the frustration that probably you have, Gabe, a lot is that you looked at that team and you looked at it as a team in its entirety, a 9-7-1 team that won a playoff game. And then you look at what happened this year with their free agency, where they brought in Paris Campbell, where they brought in Jalen Hyatt, in the draft, where they got Bob Okereke or whatever his name is. These are all pieces that, if you look at the narrative from last year, you would naturally make the leap to say they will be better this year. And it seems like not only has the team regressed, but DJ, because of the team, has regressed and started with these bad habits that he has, in terms of interceptions and fumbling.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not putting the blame. That's easy to do. It's lazy actually to say that this season is DJ's fault. He plays a part in it, but I look at this team and I'm like, you know what? You should be better than what your record is. But I always go back to our former coach Edwards. I forgot what his first name is. We are who we thought we were. You know what I'm saying? Or they are who we thought they were. You know what I'm saying? I think the Giants, they aren't what we thought they were. They are a team that's lacking in talent, and really, this is the second year of a rebuild as opposed to a second year of a team on the rise.
Yeah, I agree with that. We are still kind of technically in a rebuild. Daniel Jones is in the second year of a rookie year, technically, being that he's finally for the first time got a coaching staff, and the general manager that gives a damn about the team. It seems like, even though it may not show on the field. There was a lot of good, some bad, and some real ugly in this game. To echo your point, we have regressed. That is absolutely true. But some of the good things that we saw in this game, Waller's was getting targeted and completing and getting some actual action, some good connections with DJ. Which was helped by the fact that there was a bit more protection for DJ to be able to kind of make these plays. I know that you had mentioned that, he got sacked 4 times in the first half, but in the first half, that's kind of the tail of the tape here. It's, when if DJ has a little bit of time, he can make things happen, but it's either the offensive line does a good job or they do an absolutely horrendous job. Izuma, I believe, I can't really spell his last name, which is why I just kept referring to him at 75. But that guy's got to go. I mean, there was one drive that he 3 false starts in a row.
I think it is.
I mean, come on, bro. And this is we were right there in red zone territory. We had DJ had an awesome drive right there, ready to take it to the hole with enough time. I think we were I think it was around the 20-yard line. It was like 2nd and 4 or 1st and 4. No, 2nd and 4. And 3 false starts by 75 in a row, causing us to be freaking 20 yards away now. And it ended up turning into a field goal instead of a potential 7. And
get him out.
The first touchdown, I think this was all in the first half. And this just kind of kept happening and snowballing, throughout the game, especially with Zuma. So I think he needs to freaking be out. But sticking to the good here.
They did bench him. They did bench him.
But when? They benched him after DJ was freaking rocked and taken out of the game.
That's
but
true.
Let's stick to the good. There's got to be a little bit of feel good. And again, the feel good for me was finally getting a little bit of some wide receiver action, with consistent wide receiver action with Darius Slayton, getting Darren Waller into play a lot. He made some awesome plays, even though I would have liked to have seen some of these really big plays, finished by Waller. That's it. that's
okay.
A little bit better offensive line play, even though the offensive line allowed some really bad situations to happen. But still an improvement from last week, right? 6 sacks is better than 11.
I don't want to see. Look, I was really flustered
Better
at
half
the
than
onset.
full dead, right?
Jose, did you see any? Well, I mean, you didn't see the game, but from what you heard, and to be honest, I like hearing the games a lot more than I like watching them usually. For the most part, I feel like I like the descriptors of hearing the game. How did you feel about the game?
I like to listen to the radio broadcast and watch it if I possibly can, but they're okay. So I was very flustered earlier, and like in listening to the game, it was just really frustrating to hear. But there were some positives that I have to highlight upon thinking it through a little bit further. And this is why I'm sort of a little bit halfway off your point, Walter, where you're like, this is a rebuilding team. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there is some talent on this team. I think the defense did pretty well today. I think there are some key defensive players that can be impact players for the Giants in the next few years. I thought Pinnock did well today. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is somebody that's starting to establish himself.
The defense.
Okereke, like also they brought him over. I think he's doing well. I think he's doing pretty well also. The defense did solid. Again, it's not playing all 4 quarters, and that's kind of the problem. I was happier to see the a little bit more consistency from the wide receivers, but there wasn't still anybody other than Wan'Dale Robinson that had more than 2 catches. And of course, excuse me.
Well, you got the stat
Waller got his catches, but
Waller had
more catches, but he's your tight end, right?
Waller had 8 catches.
Yeah.
That's about the wide receivers, right?
The point of like them not having a wide receiver one. We don't have our star wide receiver. Every single week, we're like, it's basically wide receiver tryouts every week.
Yeah, 2 catches from everybody. Like I said, 5 from Wan'Dale Robinson, and it was only for 18 yards. So it's not like he went anywhere with any of those catches. And Waller had 8 catches on 11 targets. But like for me, and like it's it's really hard for me to say this, but like he's a big guy, man. He's 6'6", 245. He's the biggest person they have on that field that can catch a ball. He's got to break some tackles. And like
he's got to catch some balls.
I mean, he caught a lot. He caught a lot today. He did everything he could.
There were
not doing that every week.
There were. You didn't see it, but there were a couple really like of those 3 missed catches. 2 of those were tough catches, but there were catchable plays that were for big yardage that would have been great. And it's like if he makes those 2 catches, then we look at Daniel Jones a little bit differently. And this is where for me it goes like this is a 50-50 thing. Like I don't necessarily think that there were bad throws, but and there was also like a missed catch from I think it was Darius Slayton. It was a big deep catch that was like I think within the 5 yards of the end zone, and Darius Slayton just didn't get his feet in bounds. And it's just those are like the heartbreakers. Those are the ones where it's like, oh, come on, give this guy a break. He's literally breaking his body over you guys. But
they were tugging pads back onto DJ, like on the sidelines, like oh, gosh. Okay.
Walt, do you wanna jump in on this and talk about anything? I think you're a defense guy. I thought the defense, I think it's a little bit. I think the defense did play all 4 quarters. It's just we're playing a really good offense. So, we're not going to shut them down all 4 quarters for sure. I thought that we did a pretty good job. We caused the only scores of the game all came from defense. And the fact that we heard Kayvon Thibodeau's name throughout the entire game shows that like, okay, he's finally showing up, which it felt like he hasn't. He's felt a little bit like a bust. So how are you on that, Walt?
So I can say that with Kayvon Thibodeau, you could take his face off the milk carton because
showed up. He's here.
Yeah, we actually found him. You know what I'm saying?
Missing for a while. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, he hasn't done anything up until this year. Last week he kind of showed up.
Yeah, I was gonna say he started to show up a little bit at the end of the game last week.
Yeah, but he's kind of like. Today. He's kind of like 5 games late into the season. You know what I'm saying? Like you're going to the party and you're showing up like 2 hours late. That's Kayvon Thibodeau to me right now. Can we talk about? So okay, I gotta hit you with a good thing.
if we haven't spoken about it yet, I mean, I feel like we kind of hit it all.
Talk
for
about
the most
Kayvon and
part.
Pinnock.
I mean, if you want to go something
Waller.
good,
Scoring more than 3 points in the first half.
no, Daniel Jones didn't get double-digit sack this week, so there's a good thing.
Yeah, I
He might
know.
have if
You
he
know
was
what
in
I'm
the
saying?
game for the whole game.
I mean, let me put it this: there was very little good things to come out of it. Yes, you can say that the defense played relatively well, but you know what? There was a lot of plays where those wide receivers were running free. You know, the touchdown to kind of like end the game, so to speak, with Tyreek Hill streaking down the guy was he had at least 3-yard steps in front of the defensive back.
But that's
And I know
to
it's
be fair. But to
difficult.
be fair, that's Tyreek
No,
Hill,
no.
man.
I
Let's slow him
understand that. I
down.
understand that. But you know what? Again, you can find ways to kind of mitigate this stuff. The defensive line, non-existent for the most part in terms of pressuring Tua. You know what I'm saying? There's so. Can I ask a question?
Thibodeau got a sack. Didn't he get a sack tonight?
Huh?
Thibodeau got a sack on
He
Tua.
did.
Okay. Listen, you got one.
I know, but I'm
That's
just
awesome.
again looking for the good.
Congratulations.
Looking
You know
for
what I'm
the
saying?
good. We gotta take
Let me ask
something
you
out
a
of
question
it.
though. Where the hell is Jalen Hyatt? Did he play today? Because I didn't even see a target.
I don't think
for
he
him.
did, to be honest with you. Actually, now that I think
He
about
did
it,
not.
I didn't hear his name.
He didn't have a target at all.
But I don't even think he was on the field, to be honest, because
He
I
was
think
on
that
the
the
field
commentators would have at least brought up like they see Hyatt on the field now. I don't know what's going on between that.
Do we consider him a bust already? Because
I don't know. It must be something that the coaches are just not seeing. I do think that Dable tries to be, tries to try everything, especially in the like if you go back to like the first game, everyone was getting targeted in the second game too, and he was just targeting everyone. He was letting everyone get some touches, but I don't know if it's that he's seeing something in practice that is just not working out, or maybe, I mean, to be honest, I have no idea. I really don't. I was gonna say that maybe it's just that Dable's trying to go with like the surest thing for DJ, but I don't know, man. I don't know. To be honest, though, I do think that that just having Darius Slayton out there was a little bit of a better move.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the team that they played, that defense. You're talking about with Miami, the 25th ranked pass defense. You should have been able to do something with him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and so I wonder, because Jalen Hyatt here has been pretty much a non-factor for the entire season.
Yeah.
And I understand that there are issues
catches.
with that offensive line, and I understand that there are issues in terms. But again, I go back to scheming. You guys can find a way to get the ball. If he is supposed to be, he was a first-round pick, was he not?
Yeah.
He's got a 58-yard catch this season,
but that's 4 completions.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like, how are you not going to give that kid a chance?
Exactly.
You're not going to get that kid back out on the field. Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that something has to be going on that they're seeing midweek that they're not even trying, because it's one thing to not hit him for Jones to not target him. It's another thing for him to not even be on the field. So something I think is going on there.
I don't think he was a healthy scratch. I think he was in the game. They just didn't utilize him at all, or maybe they gave him.
I mean, I can't recall him being on the field at all that I could think of.
They just gave up, I guess.
Well, we can say the same thing for the past 4 weeks prior to this also.
Well, he's been on the field in the last few in those weeks though. I
know, but yeah. It's rare that we hear his name called. You know what I'm saying? So I look at this team and I'm like, there's a lot of bad to go around. Evan Neal again is Simba. Hello, you said you were lying. What did you do? You know what I'm saying?
He's still a Cub, I guess. You know.
I guess he's scarred because he clearly can't fight. He can't play. I mean,
what's something that I think that's bad, but that was even highlighted from your offensive line on the Jets is just, one thing is that that your run game, again, going back to Breece Hall, being able to see your offensive line push and part the waves so that Breece Hall can actually at least even have a chance to cut through is what I see as the biggest problem in our run game. I've been saying that, like, Breida and who's the
Gray.
Gray.
Eric Gray.
They are just not doing anything. In my opinion, for a while, I'm just like, you know what? They're just not Barkley. We need Barkley back. But the biggest issue, I think, is just that our offensive line is not creating the space for them to get through. Every single run play, they're just running into bodies. Like sometimes, like I think a couple times, Gray literally just runs right through, and there's just an lineman standing there. He just runs into the chest, and they just gotta stop. Jose, like, how do you feel about like that kind of thing? Do you think that there will be any difference with Barkley in the traditional run game, not using Barkley as a receiver that's going to run the ball, but in the traditional run game, if the offensive line can't part the waves so that they can kind of get in and make a play?
So, yes, I mean, Barkley is a different kind of player. He's probably got more explosiveness than any player that's on this team right now. So
That's for sure.
can make that difference. And that's kind of the problem. I mean, I feel like this kind of leads into the ugly for me, but if you want to make some other points that are bad. But like, just to like jump off on what's ugly, it's like a team-wide issue that I see is the Giants aren't finishing plays. They're not finishing tackles. They're not finishing blocks. And the running backs are not doing a terrible job, but they're not finishing when they get hit. They get hit and they fall down. They're not breaking tackles. The wide receivers aren't getting anywhere after the catch. They get hit, they fall down. They're not finishing. They're starting plays, and then they're not finishing plays. So for me, that's kind of like, okay, you can talk about the offensive line making, doing better blocking, but like when it seems like the whole team, and maybe it's a symptom of like things starting with the offensive line and trickling down, but there's like this mentality where they're not finishing on certain plays. And it's not everybody, and it's not on every play. Again, there are positives, and there are people that are really starting to try to show out in an environment where it's really hard to do that right now. But it's really hard to see what they can do, what any running back can do, Barkley or anybody else, when the team just really doesn't seem like they're playing for much anymore already. I mean, when you're 1-4, you're pretty much done for the season. So I get it, but like,
and we'll see. There's always hope. This is only the first quarter of the season. If you look at it, it just feels so bad that it feels like any kind of positive feels so far away. But technically, there's only just about a quarter of the season away. So I know, Walt, you wanted to make a point on that, but there is like one big ugly truth that I want to get to as well, and that's the situation with DJ. And it's not so much his performance, but the situation around them, literally and figuratively.
So I guess my ugly point is going to kind of go right into your point, because with the offensive line, yes, they're bad, but I keep saying that you can find ways to scheme around this. And you mentioned the Jets and Breece Hall. And so, yes, the Jets have the bit of advantage that some of their offensive line is a little bit better than the Giants, but we did lose AVT. There is thought, at least it was mentioned in the post game, that we are looking at an Achilles again with him. There's an MRI.
He came out a couple times. He may,
and he's
going to be something to look at.
With the knees. But the thing about the Jets, and you mentioned that Breece is able to see those holes and stuff like that, and maybe if Barkley is there, he can do the same thing. There is a little creativity, and I know I've been on the Jets coaching staff about that, but they don't just employ their linemen in the run game, because on one of the big plays with Breece,
they bring in their tight ends.
They pulled the tight end to come and block in the middle. So they pulled him instead of, the guards normally pull toward the outside. They pulled the tight end toward the inside, so that Breece had a blocker ahead of him. So there are ways that, again, you can kind of get over the fact that the Giants have a bad offensive line. I mean, you look at other teams, a lot of other teams have bad offensive lines, but they find a way to overcome that.
I want it real quick though. It's funny because we actually had in one of the very few plays that Breida was able to kind of get some decent yardage. I believe he still didn't get a first down on it, but he got like 7 or 8 yards. It was the exact same kind of play where we pulled Darren Waller and he pulled the guard over and it created the hole for Breida. It would have been nice to see that more often. You're absolutely right on that.
Yeah. So there are ways that you can kind of circumvent a bad offensive line, and I haven't seen the Giants coaching staff do that. So there's my ugly point. The other ugly point is the DJ situation. And so I will say this, and then I'm going to throw it to you, Gabe. DJ did go out of this game with a neck injury. It looked like it was whiplash, to be quite honest, because he was grabbed by the neck and it just kind of snapped back. It's a similar situation to the one that he had in 2021. He did speak about it in his post-game conference, saying that it felt the same way. In 2021, he missed 6 games. So
he didn't look very positive in the post game presser. Sometimes a player will go like, oh, I feel okay, it's just a little stinger or whatever, or like, I feel it's a little banged up, but I'll be all right. They'll try to give some reassurance. He looked, I guess maybe this is why I thought that he looked sad. He looked like he was in pain. And his response to any question regarding that is like, we'll know more tomorrow. And knowing more tomorrow is saying like, hey, I know it's bad, but I don't want to tell you anything until it's confirmed.
Right.
That's usually the comment that's used. And one thing that DJ is good about is being good about press conferences and saying the right things in the sense of making sure that he doesn't spill over anything too much, doesn't throw anybody under the bus, and takes accountability every time. So this doesn't sound good. And it doesn't sound good because Tyrod Taylor also, as soon as he got in the game, he's seeing pressure right away. And, even though in one of the plays he just got, it was that he got the wind knocked out of him. The scary thought of Tyrod Taylor, which is he's way smaller than Daniel Jones, taking hits like that. I mean, could you imagine Tyrod Taylor being in a game where he gets sacked 10 times? That's insane. It's ridiculous.
Do you have a third string?
I can't imagine anybody.
Do you have a third string quarterback? Because I
honestly don't know.
Today
we definitely didn't have an injury. We definitely didn't have an injury reserve quarterback because Paris Campbell was the one that was getting ready to come in. And Tyrod Taylor was going to go out, but he sucked it up and came in. But this is just the going back to the point that Jose made earlier about seeing the highlight from the first quarter of him flipping the ball back after a sack to the ref. You know what it is? His body is in pain. This man can't be taking these hits over and over and over again, and then being blindsided like he did today, all because Uzuma, right? 75. Okay, because 75 did such a piss poor job of picking up the tackle. Like he tripped and fell. He tripped and fell, and that's how that happened. And it couldn't happen because he's not a small guy. Like you should be like, it's crazy to me that something like this can happen. And now this is kind of like Giants offensive line karma. This was bound to happen. And we've been saying it all week. Media's been saying it all week. Every single outlet's been saying it. As bad as Jones has been playing, the man can't take these kind of hits all the time. Getting compared to David Carr, and Jose, you said this is how a guy gets CTE. We have another Andrew Luck on our hands if we're not careful. And I don't know. I mean, like this is just really, really bad.
That's the really ugly.
I don't know exactly where we go from here. Jose, I know. Did you get a chance to see the video, the highlight? Because I know you didn't see the game, but like, did you see the highlight of the hit?
I didn't get to see the highlight of the hit, unfortunately. I got to see some of the game, but I did not get to see the hit. You guys
well,
told
let
me
me
it
ask
was
you then,
something like
aside,
different.
I mean, the hit was bad. I can tell you that, anybody can tell you that. Walt tell you that. But where do you think the Giants go from here? Given the dire circumstances that it seems like,
The problem with the Giants from here is that y'all are pretty heavily leveraged when it comes to money over the next few years. And the thing that you do when you're really leveraged in a quarterback who I believed in too, I've talked about this earlier. I thought this season was the year that DJ would, if the team didn't take a step to establish themselves as a top 10 team in the league, I thought he could establish himself as a top 10 quarterback because I think he has some of the tools. He's not the most talented quarterback on earth, but he's a good quarterback. But when you move forward with a good quarterback like Daniel Jones, you need an offensive line. And y'all have drafted offensive linemen, in the first round or the second round, I think 3 out of the last 4 years. You're
Right.
really desperately trying, and it's just not working. And it's just the fact of the matter is, I'm a Jets fan. I haven't watched Giants games all my life, but the one thing that I always remember watching the Giants year in and year out, and was when Eli Manning was quarterback also, is watching your quarterbacks run around in terror for a good majority of the game. It's like a thing the Giants do. It's like what the Jets do with our quarterbacks.
It's something that we've done all the way back to Phil Simms. I know that came in on the Eli Manning era, but going back and seeing some of these highlights and some of these stories, Phil Simms is basically Daniel Jones as a copy of Eli Manning, who was maybe Phil Simms was a little bit more animated, but not that much more. Just a cool comic collector kind of guy that's running out of the pocket for his dear life all the time.
It's like, what do you do?
It's literally in our DNA. It's like one of those things that like
messing up quarterbacks.
It's like a hereditary thing apparently that we have a bad O-line no matter what.
That's horrible.
That's where you go, but like you've been trying to go there, like you've been desperately trying to get there, but if you can't get there when you're trying this hard, then what else can you do? It's kind of hard.
I mean,
it's a difficult problem.
You said it. I think both of you guys said it before. During the draft, actually, I think where we were kind of grading like where we are. Maybe it was during the preseason, but its depth was a huge issue, and our depth was tested day one, and it's proving to be the biggest issue that we have.
You know what? I'd have to say this: you drafted a wide receiver in the first round, but what fucking difference does it make if the quarterback is never on his feet?
That's exactly.
And we talked about this too, right? Why didn't they draft strongly more for the offensive line more than anything else?
Well, I mean, I think the reason for that is because we've been saying all along, and especially last season, that like this is Daniel Jones without weapons. Let's see what happens when we give him weapons. This season, this draft, and the offseason was primarily about getting him weapons, and I think they assumed that they can just get the O-line up to speed. And honestly, I feel like I would assume that too. I feel like the O-line's job is not difficult, but it's not easy is rather what I want to say. It's not an easy job, but it's not a difficult job to coach, I think. It's just like, hey, this is the technique, this is your form, get your reps in, move the bodies, you know what I mean? And I think they just probably assumed that like, oh, we'll be able to get them up to snuff, but we need weapons that can actually perform, and they just haven't, gotten the O-line up to snuff.
So basically, DJ was driving a Kia last year. They upgraded him to a Ferrari, but they forgot to give him wheels.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because one of the things about Ferrari, and I'm a racing fan, Ferrari is one of the most powerful vehicles that are also one of the most unreliable vehicles in the world. It's the supercar that you don't want to get, that you don't want to drive.
Perfect one, right?
So it kind of is, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily equate any of our new weapons to Ferraris, but we'll never know if we can't actually take them out for a test drive, right?
Yeah.
Well, you got the week ahead. What do we got looking for the Jets? Oh shoot, I didn't realize that you guys are going against the Eagles.
Yes,
are they over here?
Yes, they're going to be in MetLife Stadium.
Yeah, okay, so they're going to be in MetLife Stadium, and you guys kicked us out, so we got to go to our second home upstate to the Bills. Over here in New
Highmark.
York City, we don't consider that New York.
Beat
That's
them
Canada.
for us. They lost
The
this
Canadian Bills.
Yeah. It's going to be a tough week next week. The and the thing about it that makes it a little bit worse that you guys are playing the Bills. You're playing them on Sunday night. DJ, it's already been well documented. He's not
DJ
good.
is most likely not going to play. Come on, let's be serious.
Yeah, I know that. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. You know what I'm saying?
Man needs a break.
Putting in Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor, not for nothing, he's a very capable backup quarterback. Clearly, he's not on the level of DJ, but you could do worse with a backup quarterback.
That's absolutely true. There is also this X factor. I don't mean to jump in, but he's going to go play in his former home. He knows that stadium. He knows the area. He knows the stadium. He's not really necessarily going to have the jitters and stuff. And who knows? Maybe he comes home to a warm reception as well if he's the one that's starting the game. So that might all play into a factor. Plus, wasn't there like a serious injury that happened to
Matt Milano? Matt Milano, their star linebacker, fractured his leg. He's out for the season. So they're just getting back Von Miller, but they lose Matt Milano for the season. So, and that's they lost Tre'Davious White last week. So that defense, that defense looks like you might have a chance of doing something. Now it also depends on
Barkley comes back for that game.
It also depends on what Von Miller you're getting, because remember, Von Miller hasn't played for a long time. When he does play,
pitch count.
Yeah, pitch count. You know what I'm saying? So there is an opportunity there for the Giants.
Oh my God!
The Bills will be a little bit easier to handle than Miami, clearly, because Miami has that speed element to that. If you look at the Bills, they're not as good as the Dolphins in terms of personnel wise, the talent that they have. So there's an opportunity for the Giants if they can keep it close. You might have a chance.
There is something there, actually. Now that I think about it, you got Tyrod Taylor that's most likely going to be starting, so he's comfortable there. You got a weakened Bills team, and you got Dable and Shane who know the Bills and know Josh Allen specifically. So, hopefully that helps.
You also have the continuation of the Diggs and Josh Allen mini feud, if you want to call it.
Yeah,
because Diggs was clearly not happy with his quarterback today, taking the tablet and trashing it on the floor.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, interesting. Jose, now, how do you feel about the Jets and the Eagles?
Jets and the Eagles. Well, the Eagles won today, I believe, right? They beat the Rams.
They are 5-0.
Fucking Eagles. I fucking hate them.
I mean, wait, the Eagles are not 5-0.
The Eagles are 5-0. They have not lost.
Yeah, they're 5-0. That's the
last two
Jalen Hurts
teams are them, and
they haven't been playing as well as they did last year, but they're still finding ways to win.
Yeah, it's funny because Hurts was saying that, like, I guess, like, because they're not getting any love. It was like, I guess people forgot that the whole point is winning.
Jets, Eagles. Yeah. All right. Honestly, I think this is going to be a bigger loss than a worse game than we've experienced the last couple of weeks. I think we matched up pretty well against the Chiefs because the Chiefs have a decent defense, but it's a very matchup specific defense. It's not an overall great defense. Their offense is still struggling to get it together, right? I think they had a tough game against the Vikings today. And this week, I mean, obviously we matched up pretty well against the Denver fucking Broncos. I mean, it was a tougher game than it should have been.
You matched up well because you guys were both trying to give the game away at the same time.
Man.
Here, you take it. No, you take it.
We don't want the game.
Exactly.
We don't want it either.
Well, I don't want it either.
You know what's going to happen? The Eagles are going to run all over the Jets, I think, next week, unfortunately. So I don't think it's going to be a good game.
I don't think so. I actually think the Jets are going to give them their first loss.
You think we're going to give the best offensive line in the league their first loss? Okay.
Well, only because their main thing has been the run game. Okay,
Mhm.
their running game has been what's been kind of saving them, and I think that you guys are going to be able to handle them a little bit better on the run. And I think that your corners, especially Sauce Gardner, is going to be able to kind of have himself a game against the Eagles. I personally think my biggest issue with the Eagles is that those mofo's, every time they come here, it's like half the stadium is full of them. That's the biggest issue that I have with those freaking Eagles.
And it is a 4:00 game,
like
so
we want you to beat the Bills.
they'll be here.
It doesn't matter where they are. If they go to LA to play the Rams, half the stadium is green. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. Listen, their fans travel well. We have to admit, between them and Bills Mafia, who is well represented in London today. Those are two teams that have a fan base that travel well with them. I kind of in terms of the Jets Eagles, I kind of agree with Jose, only because the two biggest weaknesses of this Jet defense that's been exposed for the last year and a half is the fact that they do not defend the run very well. And again, you're looking at, for the third straight week, another mobile quarterback, and they have not been doing well against those type of players either. In terms of the defense, I think they do kind of match up well with them outside of that. My biggest problem, and it's been an issue again for the last couple of years, how will Zach fare against that defense? Because that defense is a very, very good defense. That defense is a scary defense. I don't think Zach Wilson has faced that kind of defense except for the Dallas game, and we saw how that Dallas game went, So I have a little trepidation. I do believe that the Jets can pull it out. I just don't have the ultimate, like I'm not laying, $1 million bet that they're going to do it. Let's put it that way.
How bad is it that I have higher hopes for the Jets versus the Eagles than the Giants versus the Bills?
Well, listen, you got to have hopes in some team this year. You know what I'm saying?
We'll see. Well, you know what, guys? I think that's enough. We do need to kind of call it. This has been kind of a long episode, but it's been a hard episode to kind of get through with the Giants, only because it feels like it's the same thing week over week, just worse every time. So
this is therapy. This is therapy.
I guess that's what let's change the name from Blue versus Green show to the Blue versus Green therapy session. So
there you
go. Anyway, guys, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. You've been able to stick through all the way to the end. So I hope that you've already hit that subscribe button and that notify button if you're already subscribed. Thank you guys so much. And until next time, go Giants.
Go Jets.
Go Jets. Let's go.
Peace.
Peace.